Hey, here's a fun drinking game. You can play along with this video. Every time there's an explosion, do a shot. Like that one. G'day, welcome back to another episode of Explosions and Fire. Today, we're talking about yellow powder. Yellow powder is a mixture of 3 ingredients which, when melted together, will reliably and consistently turn into a violent explosion.
The powder that's on the spoons here may give a rather loud bang. You may need to cover your ears if you don't like loud bangs. But this is a very unusual mix. In fact, chemists don't know how this one works. Okay, I've spoken to...
Both the violence of the explosion and the reliability of it are pretty weird, but also another thing I find pretty weird, despite this mix being known since the time of alchemy, modern science really just hasn't got around to figuring out what is going on in this mixture. Why is it blowing up?
It's quite fascinating. As far as I know, what exactly is going on is a mystery.
We don't understand the role of the potassium carbonate in this. It's not...
I'm scientist. If no one else is going to get around to it, why don't we solve the mystery of yellow powder, or at least generate some pilot data, so then when someone else gets the actual result, I can claim some credit? Sure. Alright, so to do some actual science, we've got to do 2 things. Generate some graphs, and we need references. We need to cite someone. That sounds like a lot of work, so as a true academic, our main reference citation is going to be myself from a couple of years ago. Let's take a look at the ingredients list. First up, we have potassium nitrate. The potassium nitrate I have is what I would label fertilizer grade because I got it from a fertilizer, and it's kind of weirdly yellow, so I think we will do the bare minimum of work here in purification and run a recrystallization of the potassium nitrate from hot water. So at least we can start to claim it's at least mostly potassium nitrate. The next ingredient is sulfur, and once again, this is just from the hardware store, and I could run a recrystallization from a solvent like xylene, but I'm not going to. I think the sulfur's fine. It's just sulfur, man. It's not going to be that filthy. It'll be fine. You don't have to be balls deep in the chemistry fandom to know that potassium carbonate sucks as a chemical. It's not an interesting pyrotechnic chemical at all. In fact, if you were to add potassium carbonate to any other pyrotechnic mix, it would make it worse. Yet this is a secret 3rd ingredient that turns a potassium nitrate and sulfur kind of reasonably fast burning mix into something that can explode on heating. All of these ingredients are kept dry in my vacuum desiccator over some calcium chloride next to some nitrated McDonald's fries from a little while ago that are still in there. I should probably do something about that. Now we have all our ingredients and they're already in nice fine powders. We can make up a mixture of 55, 27, 18. This is the ratio I used a couple of years ago, and it seemed to work pretty well then. The challenge is often applying the right amount of heat to the yellow powder because it needs to be molten or it won't explode. If you heat it too fast, it'll just catch on fire and it doesn't really burn with any great excitement. And if you heat it too slowly and you don't give it enough heat at all, nothing happens and you kind of are waiting there forever. So you just need to get it the right amount of heat. It will explode after some random amount of time. And let me tell you, this random amount of time, oh man, the suspense.
Oh man, I've blown up a bit of stuff now, and I gotta say, yellow powder is possibly the worst one. There's this huge weight, and the suspense absolutely kills you. Like, you light the candle or whatever, and then like, you don't know if it's gonna be 10 minutes or 1 minute and that blows up. You have to watch it the whole time. I mean, I'm not gonna leave and just let it explode on its own. But...
Sorry, I make a good point, but what am I wearing? What is that shirt? I found the shirt. I don't know why I was so obsessed with this, but I obviously was filming back in 2014 from a very weird angle with a bright pink shirt on, and I was trying to think what that shirt was, but I found it. Such a 2014 artifact. It says, "What answers on the NBN? Just ask a local," which is... Everyone outside of Australia won't know what this means, so I will very briefly explain what the NBN is, right? Okay. Back in 2009, Australia's internet speed wasn't very good. We were like 30th in the world, and we had this really old, kind of aging copper network. The government at the time was like, well, what if we just ran optical fiber to everyone's house? People were kind of on board. It was going to cost like $50 billion and take a couple of years, but by 2013, they hadn't really rolled it out very well. So when the new government came in, they were like, nah, thing sucks. What we're going to do is we're going to run fiber nearly to the house and then connect all the houses. We'll use the existing copper network, which kind of feels like it would defeat the whole purpose of the thing and be really shitty. And that was correct. By 2016, 3 years later, they were somehow 3 years behind schedule. There were like 7 different connection types. Everyone was confused what the fuck was going on. And after all that time, we were then 60th in the world ranking speed of internet. And I don't think Australia's ever cracked the top 50 again. Everyone hated the NBN, and rightly so, and people still do. I must have been wearing this shirt in the lab because I had it, but I was too scared to wear it out in public because the public opinion of the NBN was so bad. I was worried that as soon as someone saw me, they would just like throw me to the ground and start beating me up. Yeah, once again, this has nothing to do with anything. It's just so stupid that in 2014 I was like, what will I wear when I'm going to make these explosive videos for the internet? I know, a Telstra NBN t-shirt. And then I obviously had to crop it out. Anyway, where was I? I've genuinely forgotten. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. God damn it. I don't like yellow chemistry. It's been the meme for a long time. All yellow chemistry is trash. If your synthesis at any point goes yellow, it just stops working. Chemistry turns you into a hater, and you gotta let that happen, you know? Otherwise the chemicals win. It's only through hate does one stay human. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that one. But fine, you don't have to side with my insane grudge to agree with me that the name yellow powder is an absolutely shit name. Fine, it's yellow. Okay. That name might have been fine in alchemy times when they only had 3 different types of powder and Google search still actually fucking worked. But you Google yellow powder now and you do not get results for the bloody alchemy powder. I know what powdered yellow looks like, Google. I don't know. Give me some goddamn recipes. How is the only source on what a good ratio is this random forum post from 2006? This is the same data I used back in, I don't know, however long ago I last did this. And this is still the best reference source. This guy just says source is a source. Like, how is this the only information I could find on it? Fine. So that's where 55, 27, 18 comes from. It sounds extremely specific, so sure, that must be good. And while I'm being a hater, the candle method for heating yellow powder kind of does really suck, because the wind just will blow out the candle, or if it does explode, the camera gets covered in hot wax. Beautiful. Yet everyone who does yellow powder seems to want to do it over a shitty candle with like a spoon, which is very heroin core. If we get the thermal camera out, it doesn't seem like it needs to get that hot before it explodes. It seems it's, kind of around 300 degrees. Whoa. Which is well within the range of a hot plate. So I got this big hulking hot plate for like soldering or something, soldering preheating, and I got these big copper plates to somewhat protect the hot plate from the explosions that we're going to generate on it. The thing gets pretty hot, so it seems to work fine. And I got very distracted about how bloody reflective these copper plates are in the infrared. How cool is that? It's cool, but I lost a whole day of work just doing this anyway, whatever. Finally, for the yellow powder containers, I got this whole stack of these lip balm containery things. So these are just metal tubs, so we can just put the yellow powder in there, put that on the copper heating plate, and we should get a reasonably consistent heating rate. So now it's time for our first bit of actual data. What is the cook-off temperature of the explosive? All right, this is 400 milligrams at 180 degrees. Definitely sounds like I'm just talking shit when I say cook-off time, but cook-off time is the technical term for it. It's the amount of time where it's getting sustained heat before it explodes. As expected, the lower temperatures don't cause any explosion. It's still well above the melting point of sulfur, so the mix does melt, and we see some colors start to come in. We get a bit of a red coloration, which is probably the polysulfide, so the sulfur reacting with the potassium carbonate. But it's not until higher temperatures where we start to see the whole mix turning black and potentially exploding at any moment. At any moment, maybe at around 300 degrees. But it doesn't. So I just have to awkwardly go and turn the power off after about 15 minutes. So once again, it could just explode at any time. I cannot express how strange it is waiting for this stuff to blow up. On one hand, it's frightening because at any moment it could loudly explode, but also you have to just stand there for 15 minutes and you have no idea what's going on because it's easy to see what's happening from the camera's point of view, but my point of view is much further away because we're doing this in metal tins. We don't know if it's going to shrapnel, so I'm far away. Is it going to happen? How about now? Yeah, see, like it's boring. Does anyone have a fun fact to fill in the time? No? Okay, well, do you know Canberra is the capital of Australia? And it's the only world capital, as far as I'm aware, that has its own version of ketamine. It's called CanKet. It was just discovered on the streets. It wasn't really known to science. Like, no one's ever done human or animal testing of the substance. And so they just, asked the people, what's CanKet like? And people were like, oh, it's mid. I don't know. I think this shit is important. You pick it up only because you do the pill testing. And this bloody can test is the only state, it's the only place in Australia that does voluntary pill testing. And you should see the stats that come out of there. It's crazy. It's insane that more states do. Whoa. Gets me every fucking time. Okay, so it only exploded when we got to 320 degrees. So from now on, we're going to set the hot plate to 325 just to ensure we always get an explosion because I hate waiting around and then approaching it when it doesn't explode. 400 milligrams is probably the maximum amount of material we can do in these metal containers without risk of shredding and bursting these. Jeez. But, the graph demands data. So we're going to start with 500 milligrams. Is it even consistent? It's pretty consistent, I would say. It's just over a minute. There was one run that took a bit longer, but it's always important to remember that in about 25% of all data points, God just comes in and interferes just to keep us humble. You know what I mean? So 3 out of 4 is all right. You take that. You take that. It all seems to make sense, and we're definitely starting to get shrapnel. Oops. If we're visiting Shrapnel Town, we might as well go to the CBD of Shrapnel City. So fuck it, 750 milligrams. Let's do it. Takes a little bit longer, some good data on the plot. And actually, these explosions were very big and allowed me to do something I've wanted to do for a long while, which is actually film the shockwave. We can confirm it's a shockwave because we know how long the bloody hot plate is and we know what the frame rate is, so we can work out the speed of the wave. And when we do that, it's pretty much the speed of sound in air. So I thought that was cool. We actually see the shockwave, but we're really upsetting the bird life in the area. Neat though. So yeah, that's data. It's fine because I have extremely low standards. But I think the next experiment is really the key one. It's really a fundamental question that underpins all of modern science. Are the dudes on a random 2006 forum post actually correct or not? In order to graph this, we need a ternary diagram, all right? Those people that did that one semester of geology in university, now's your time to shine. All the axes of all the different, I'm not explaining this very well. Percent sulfur would be up the top of the triangle. If it was a 50-50 mixture of the two, it would be along the line, and then a 1-1-1 mixture, so a perfect mixture of all the three would be right in the center of the triangle. Does that make any sense? It doesn't matter if it, it does matter if it does. Hopefully this fucking makes sense to you if I've explained it well, which I haven't. We can put even more information on this graph if we use a color scale, right? Because then we can put in the cook-off time into the colors. And if it doesn't explode, we'll put a cross there. And what we're trying to find out is how much of this triangle explodes. And we don't expect a lot of it too. I'm assuming it's a pretty specific ratio that actually reliably detonates. But yeah, let's keep doing it. We'll make different mixtures and explode them. And they explode. So I'll make some different ones. And they explode. and just keep doing it. Weighing out more stuff. Explosions. And they just explode. Except sometimes they don't. And you have to wait. And the suspense is there. So, did a lot of explosions. Some of them smelt really bad because of the sulfur. And some of them just sat there. But it was all worth it. Gaze upon actual data. First of all, the mix can vary a lot and it still explodes. There's some triangles over there. That means that the mix ignited but didn't explode. It could still explode after igniting, and I think like one of the ones up the top here has a lot shorter time than I think it would necessarily otherwise have because it caught on fire. I only ran each of these ones once. It would be great if I did every one of these 3 times, but I'm not doing that. It's actually amazing how little other things happened. Generally, they either exploded or they didn't explode. There was very little kind of like semi-explosions. In fact, you had to really go over to the weird triangle region. All the other ratios just exploded. Oh fuck, I've really set this video up as if I'm going to solve this mystery. No, I don't know what's happening. Let's point out some obvious things. Obviously, the sulfur is reacting with the carbonate to form polysulfides, and polysulfides are kind of long polymerase chains, and it's very easy to say, oh, well, that polymerase chain is then melting with the nitrate mix and forming an ideal mixture, which then explodes. It's too easy. It's too convenient. If it was that easy to get a reliable, consistent, violent detonation, then heaps of different mixers would detonate like this, but that's just not the case. And I think the black coloration is for basically the ring cracking. So sulfur exists in this kind of octagon situation, and at high temperatures it breaks down into more longer chains. But if you remember, we can generate this black mixture and it won't explode. So there's another reaction going on. There's some speculation that maybe the nitrate is getting reduced to a nitrite and that's more reactive. All of this data, it feels weirdly consistent, and it shouldn't have that sort of same delay time if it's, you know, doing some weird nitrite reaction. And I know what you're thinking. What if we just edged this guy along, you know? Got him really hot, but then stopped. Well, the mix is not explosive. It needs that high temperature. So if you go right up to the mark and then stop, it's not some super reactive mixture that's been frozen in there. So it almost feels like it's a, I don't know, some sort of, I don't know, but it's not a mixture of nitrite and polysulfides. Because if that was the case, it would be perfectly kind of, you know, the important bit about pilot data is the pilot is the first person to debark the plane. So this is what I'm doing. If you do any follow-on research, you've got to cite my preprint, which hopefully is still up on the archive site and not taken down for professionalism reasons or lack of professionalism reasons. I can't help but think I haven't really contributed much to science in this video. But feeling like I haven't contributed much to science is a feeling I'm very used to. So I'm really not bothered by it anymore, you know? Science sucks. Like, I ain't about to give back to it. Science just takes. Science just takes. You know what I mean? It's great. But you know what? Actually, you know what really annoys me? The fact that I can't get in contact with those 2006 forum posters. I mean, they're the real heroes of this story. But I mean, 2006 was like 23 years ago. I can't get in contact with these people. There's no way I'm going to know one. Holy fuck. That's Styropyro. The laser dude. I'm seeing him in like a week. Oh. I didn't really like the competition.